Hello, today we have the universal facts, principles, laws. Let's go. So, as it is already understood, we are from the Earth's perspective here, existing as a couple or pair, the self and the human being, or the soul and the human being. So, we are composed of the higher self, the non physical part, and of the lower part, semi physical and physical, which I call the human being, now at this moment, here. Next, regardless of the fact that we are different, all different perspectives of life, you are a perspective of life, I am a perspective of life, we have nevertheless one common and absolute truth. So everyone has of us have this common and absolute truth that is valid for all of us, but not for only for the earth, but for all that is, for all parallel worlds, realities. This truth, the absolute truth, is revealed as a number of universal facts or principles, laws, which essentially represent some kind of rules of the game in all that is in God, you can say, of God. You can appoint all that is also as God, creator, source, universe, multiverse, it's up to you. I called God as all that is. Sometimes I use the term source, mostly when I am referring to the non-physical part of us. So, the universal facts. The universal facts are some kind of rules of the game of life, and they exist or operate in the same way whether we know them or not, whether we believe them or not, whether we use them consciously or unconsciously, as they are operating regardless of our alignment. So they are above our belief system. In other words, the universal facts go beyond our human belief system as they are a part of our self's knowledge, of the higher self knowledge, of the soul's knowledge. We can realize the universal facts through our own experiences through life, but also through our self-messages, be it through dreams or channelings, especially when we are of a higher awareness. So, the universal facts are common to all of us, but since we are a perspective made of the self through our own individual mind or personality of this human being, also the universal facts become colored in a slightly different way. And so, through my perspective, I color them into 7 universal facts. So we have this absolute truth, high truth, that is split through our mind, like a light through a prism, and is called in different ways. I summed up this absolute truth in 7 universal facts. Someone else that is enlightened, it can explain this in just in 3 facts, universal principles. Someone else in 10. But if you check theirs or my definition, it is similar, especially if you are talking about people of higher awareness. Now let's go into these facts. First fact. The first fact, I am, simply I am. What does it mean? Regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular word, it applies that I, as a consciousness, exist forever in unconditional love and unity. This means that we are all eternal and timeless consciousnesses of unconditional love and all acceptance, regardless of our temporary form of existence like here. So we may not believe in afterlife, but it applies this, that you have this eternal part, non-physical part. So, and we can say that this fact has some form of challenge. And the challenge of this fact is that one must become aware that we have no end and no beginning, that we are all eternal selves, souls, consciousnesses. The second fact, everything is worth. What does it mean? Regardless of our form of existence and focusing to a particular word, it applies that everything is worth of existence and experience. This means that since everything is composed of the same quality of all that is, that everything is, regardless of the apparent diversity, basically equivalent and consequently also connected and related. And even though the duality and our distinctly polarized brain is forcing us into differentiation and evaluation. For example, this is good, this is bad, this is poor, this is cheap, this is expensive. But from the higher perspective, is everything equivalent to another thing? everything is worth of existence. But here we have these beliefs, definitions, this free will to evaluate things. This means that from the high perspective, from this spirit world is something in itself neutral or equivalent to another thing, although it is frequently experienced as positive good or as negative bad when we are focused into the words of duality, like here. Thus everything is worth, not this or that, but this and that is worth of existence. Or by analogy, regardless of the fact that a coin or a medal has two sides or stories, it is still made from the same material or origin. Or no matter that we think differently, we are still connected and equivalent. Worth of existence. The challenge of this fact is tough. At this fact, it is necessary to learn all acceptance, that is, the accepting of good, bad, or the different as being equally worth of existence, because this will bring you closer to your higher self in awareness. You can also experience all acceptance as respect or gratitude towards something. Because if you're growing inner resistance to this and that, you are less irritable in stress, so you're not in all acceptance. You're not accepting this universal fact. Further, the third fact, everything is coexisting. Regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular world, it applies that everything is coexisting in timelessness, eternity. This means that although there are different words and forms of existence in different timelines or periods, ages, everything is intertwined, and especially everything is coexisting right at this moment, irrespective of the linear time in the lower worlds like here. Thus, for example, the Earth's seeming past and future are unfolding right now, which also means so the past and our history and the future that is still to come, they exist right now because they exist infinite variant of everything. There is infinite variant of this and that, and we just choose something before we embody. Which also means at this fact that everything we can imagine and visualize, and also everything we cannot imagine or visualize, all of this is already coexisting on a certain parallel world reality in a certain approximation of our vision. So everything we can imagine and everything we cannot imagine, all of this is already existing on some parallel world reality in all it is because they exist infinite variants. And I say an approximation of our vision because our human mind is limited. Yes, because our human mind is limited. The challenge of this fact. This fact is necessary to pay less attention to the past and future and more to the life in the moment, in the here and now, since everything is coexisting. Your future is already coexistent, but I'm going to talk more about this in the next lectures, that you have both destiny and free will. So they exist many variants of your future, and they exist, or right now, many variants of your history. You lived something, you have lived something, but you could live something else. So if you know this fact and you're living more in the moment, you're more in inner peace and bliss. The fourth fact, every equivalent vibration is compatible. Regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular world, it applies that every equivalent vibration is compatible. This means that there are two equivalent vibrations compatible or attractive, while two sufficiently different, however, incompatible or repulsive. But the further we go into certain dimensions or densities, like here, the greater is the proximity between the multiplicity of different vibrations. But it still applies that there is at least one equivalent or similar prevalent vibration that is uniting something together. Always. For example, now, right at this lecture, it binds us the predominant vibration of mutual learning and or socializing, even though we have many other mutually incompatible vibrations within ourselves, that is, different beliefs, definitions, thoughts, emotions, fears, and inner resistances. But nevertheless, we have one common prevalent vibration that is uniting us. And this is, like I said, learning, socializing, even if it goes for a virtual world. It doesn't matter. I can also say that the one parallel vibration that is uniting us is our mission, and it can be just for 1 minute, for some seconds. This is the list that is uniting us together, attracting us together. The challenge of this fact. At this fact, one should become aware that equal or similar goes together in this world, that your close outer world reflects your inner world, the close outer world, not the other side of the globe, and not what you're not seeing. What you're seeing right now, it reflects at this moment your alignment. It could be just for some seconds, but it reflects your prevalent vibration. And on our earth, this alignment, our alignment is defined by our strongest beliefs towards something, by our strongest definitions towards something, toward us and the environment, by our strongest thoughts and emotions towards something, but our fears and inner resistances towards something, and consequently by our actions towards something. So all of this is defining our alignment, what is coming next into our life. Then we have the fifth fact. Every consequence has its own reason. Regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular word, it applies that every consequence has its own reason. This means that there are no coincidences in all that is, as every reaction has its own action, its own meaning, purpose, origin. This universal fact can be appointed as the law of cause and effect. You probably have heard about this law. This fact also states that a certain cause is from the high perspective immediately recognizable and visible from the spirit world down, from this fifth dimension down. However, from here it is often imperceptible and invisible, and especially if we aren't enough high in awareness, so we have much suffering. The challenge of this fact. This fact is necessary to take responsibility for our own alignment and actions towards something, because this is defining what is coming next into our own life. So what we're believing now, what we're defining now, thinking, emotionalizing, uh, fearing, or in resistance to something, this is defining what is coming next into our life. This is our current alignment. And of course, it is reprogrammable. The sixth fact. Every intention is already manifested. Basically, this is an extension of the fact everything is already coexisting. So every intention is already manifested. What does it mean? Regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular word, it applies that every intention of a self is already manifested or fulfilled. So every intention of the higher self is already manifested or fulfilled in some parallel world, because everything is coexisting. Infinite variations. This means that every intention of a self is exactly now manifested in some word and form of existence. So a self has only to align on the selected manifestation's vibrations so that it then also experiences it. The alignment takes place in the higher worlds instantly, because there is no time, this lag, like here, while in the lower ones with a big time lag through the process. So here we have the process. In the higher worlds, from the fifth above, there is no process. There are instantaneous manifestations. So we have a vision, and this is already a manifestation. This is the best approximation how the higher worlds are working. In other words, for specific intentions, a self has to embody into a certain lower world and form of existence and directs to experience the intention through the process. This universal fact can be also appointed as the law of alignment, or the law of attraction. I call it as the law of alignment. The challenge of this fact. In this fact, it is necessary to realize that toward what we are devoting our attention and investing energy, this will sooner or later manifest or expand toward us in a certain form. And of course, it also applies that what we are resisting, pushing away, this is resisting, fighting back. It teaches us the so-called all acceptance that is unconditional love. So if we're resisting something, we are fearing and resisting, let's say, the robbers, the one who rapes, the one who are violent, then this is coming into our life because it teaches us all acceptance that everything is worth of existence. So pay attention to this. And the last, the seventh fact, everything is changing. This you already know. So, regardless of our form of existence and focus into a particular word, it applies that everything is changing except of the universal facts. This absolute shared truth. This is not changing. This absolute truth. This one absolute higher truth. Yes, we can display this absolute truth in different facts, split it, use different words. This is changing. So, this means that everything else is changing, that everything else is in motion, even if the changes are undetectable from a certain form of existence. For example, while sleeping, we are not perceiving changes, although we are still breathing and occasionally moving, or although a stone is on the surface seemingly unchanging. It is on the microscopic, atomic, or subatomic level always changing. It is always some kind of motions. At least the electrons are moving. So everything is in motion, everything is changing. Even if we aren't aware of this when we are in solitude, in inner peace and bliss, and we close our eyes, for example, meditation. The challenge. At this fact, it is necessary to learn allowance, therefore acceptance, surrender, and relaxation toward the changes, toward the challenges in our life. So, our life is composed of various challenges. I don't call them as problems. We make problems by our own beliefs and definitions. Challenges, okay? And so we are becoming older and older. We are changing. It is unavoidable that you are going to pass away. So accept this because there is more of inner peace and bliss. And you are fighting this, you can become even ill. Okay, along these universal facts relies here at the following. Materiality is the product of spirituality. The material world is the product of the source of the non-physical, of the spirituality. Physicality, then, physicality is the product of non-physicality. It is the same. All physical is the product of non-physical. So, even the science in atheism, here, that is physical, it is the consequence of spirituality or non-physicality. A further point, duality is the product of unity. So we here have this duality, good, bad, interesting, uninteresting, cheap, expensive, but this exists in unity, in all that is. So duality is the product of unity. Then finality is the product of infinity. A thing is final like our body, it has boundaries that we are seeing only here, but it is the product of infinity. It exists in infinity, in a non-physical space. The next point, time is the product of eternity. So this linear time here is the product of an eternity. A certain period, age exists in timelessness. So it is the product of eternity. And for the last, the imaginary non-existence is the product of existence. So we can have, let's say, a vision of non-existence, but it is an imaginary non-existence. Because if there is the observer, for example, of the blackness, that can be, let's say, some form of non-existence, if there is the observer of the blackness, that we have a vision of blackness, this is still existence, because there is the observer. If there is no observer, we can call it as non-existence, but non-existence doesn't exist. Everything is in this non-existence. You can experience in some life like some form of non-existence, like when you're sleeping. For example, here you're sleeping and then you wake up, and if you don't recall any dreams, it like seems that was only a blackness for 8 hours, like non-existence. So there is some form of experience of non-existence, but when you were sleeping, you were, in other words, as the higher self, the soul experience other there are words realities. Well, basically, it's all for today. So have a nice day. Bye bye.